You need to breed him, she said, her voice a low hum that seemed to resonate in his bones, not just his ears. It vibrated against the scavenged hull plating he leaned on, a hull that was barely holding together, and threatening to vent atmosphere at the next asteroid impact. Gale blinked. He was still scraping crud off a power conduit, grime clinging to his gloves, the stale air of the derelict station tasting like ozone and rust. He'd been pulling salvage on his floating wreck for 3 cycles, hoping to piece together enough credits to get a decent jump drive, maybe even a pilot modulator that didn't scream every time he engaged thrusters. He hadn't expected company, especially not this kind. The creature standing before him wasn't human, not even close. Her form was graceful, fluid, almost liquid in the low light of the maintenance bay. She had no discernible hair, no ears he recognized. Her face was smooth, framed by what looked like flexible, translucent frills that pulsed with soft, internal light, shifting from a pale violet to a deep, anxious blue. Her eyes were large, dark pools that seemed to absorb the light rather than reflect it, giving them an unnerving depth. And her skin, it wasn't skin. It was a sheath of something that shifted and shimmered, revealing intricate patterns beneath the surface, swirls and lines that glowed faintly, flowing like slow-moving water. They pulsed now, mirroring the frills around her face, radiating that same anxious blue. And beside her, bobbing slightly in the station's low gravity, was the pet. It was small, roughly the size of his head, a rounded, furry mass with too many eyes that blinked independently and twitching antennae. It emitted a soft, mournful chittering sound. Breed, him? Gale repeated slowly, trying to parse the alien's words through a standard-issue translator, which often struggled with complex social concepts, especially from species this. Exotic. He gestured vaguely at the chittering ball of fluff. You mean, like, reproduce? With it? The alien tilted her head, the light in her frills intensifying to a brighter, more urgent violet. The glowing patterns on her form swirled faster. Yes, breed. He is of age. The cycle demands it. He requires a partner. You are suitable. Gale felt his stomach clench. Suitable? For that? He stared at the creature, then at the pet. He hadn't been suitable for much of anything since the deployment ended. Soldier, pilot, mercenary, now just a glorified space garbage man. But suitable for this? His mind raced, trying to find a logical explanation. Was this some kind of complex barter? He helps with her pet's reproductive needs. She gives him salvage rights, or maybe coordinates to a better find. But the way she looked at him, those dark, intense eyes seemed to bore right through him, searching for something. The glowing patterns on her body pulsed with an intensity that felt less like negotiation and more like something else entirely. It was unsettling, alien, and undeniably fascinating. His hand, still covered in grime, rested on the cold metal of the conduit. He could feel the subtle vibrations of the station around them. The air thickened with a scent he couldn't identify, something clean and sharp, like rain on metal, mixed with the pet's earthy smell and the alien's own unique aroma, like distant stars and something warm and deep. He felt a sudden, intense physical awareness, a strange resonance with her presence that bypassed logic and went straight to instinct. It wasn't just visual. It was a full-body sensory experience. The blue light on her form deepened, and he felt an answering flutter in his chest, a mix of fear and curiosity he hadn't felt in years. He shifted his weight, the old jumpsuit fabric rustling. Look, he said, choosing his words carefully. I don't think you understand. I can't breed with your pet. I'm a human. That's biologically impossible. She took a step closer, gliding rather than walking. The light in her frills was now a hypnotic, pulsating violet, radiating a warmth he could almost feel. The patterns on her body swam with complex movements. She reached out a hand, her fingers long and slender, tipped with sharp, iridescent nails. She didn't touch him, but hovered her hand just inches from his chest, near his heart. The warmth intensified. Biological compatibility is not the primary concern, she stated, her voice softer now, losing some of its initial urgency, becoming more persuasive. It is the essence, the life force. He requires a specific resonance. Yours, it matches Her eyes held his, unblinking. The depth in them was profound, ancient. He felt a prickle on his skin, not from fear, but from the sheer, overwhelming alienness of the moment, the intensity of her gaze, the strange warmth radiating from her hand, and the persistent, mournful chittering of the pet. His translator buzzed with uncertainty. "Matches what?" he asked, his voice a little rougher than he intended. The space between them felt charged, electric. He could smell that clean, sharp scent now, stronger, almost intoxicating. It bypassed the filters in his suit and went straight to his brain, sparking something primal. He wanted to pull away, but he was rooted to the spot, captivated by the shifting lights, the humming voice, the raw, unsettling vulnerability in her strange eyes. He knew, instinctively, this was a moment that would change everything, and he had absolutely no idea what he was getting into. The alien woman's hand, still hovering near his chest, drifted closer, then rested gently against the front of his scavenged jumpsuit. The fabric was thin and worn, and he felt the warmth of her touch immediately, seeping through the material. It wasn't just warmth. It was a subtle vibration, a kind of internal resonance that seemed to quiet the buzzing in his ears and focus his attention entirely on her. Her skin, or whatever the shimmering sheath was called, felt cool and smooth, almost impossibly so. He could feel the faint, pulsing light beneath her touch, a soft rhythm against his ribs. Her large, dark eyes searched his face, and he had the strange sensation that she wasn't just looking at him, but feeling him, sensing something deep within his core. The violet light in her frills deepened, the pulsing slower now, less anxious, more expectant. "Your essence," she repeated softly, her voice a low resonance in the small space. "The song within your form. It is vibrant, necessary." She lowered her hand slowly, but her gaze remained locked with his. The glowing patterns on her body were swirling and shifting, no longer frantic, but flowing like gentle currents. He realized the patterns weren't random. They seemed to reflect her internal state, her emotions, maybe even her thoughts. Right now, they were a complex tapestry of soft blues and violets, interspersed with flashes of a warm, golden light. It was mesmerizing. The pet, still hovering nearby, chittered again, a softer, less mournful sound. Gale swallowed, his throat dry. This was a lot. Essence? Song? He was a human man, pragmatic to a fault, grounded in the harsh realities of scraping a living in the void. Talk of essences and songs felt like something out of a children's fable, or worse, a con artist's pitch. Yet her intensity was undeniable. Her presence was overwhelming, filling the small bay with that strange, clean scent and the subtle hum of her voice. He could feel the heat rising in his own skin, a response he hadn't anticipated. He was used to reacting with suspicion, with distance, with a shield of sarcasm or silence. But this was different. It bypassed his defenses. "Look," he tried again, his voice still rough, "I appreciate whatever it is you're saying, but I'm just a guy who fixes broken things and tries not to get spaced. I don't have any song or essence that can help your pet. Are you sure you have the right guy?" She tilted her head again, a movement that somehow conveyed both curiosity and certainty. "There are few like you," she stated simply. "The resonance is rare, a harmony of strength and sorrow. It is what he requires." Her eyes flickered down his body for a brief second, then returned to his face, lingering on his eyes. The golden light within her patterns pulsed brighter. He felt a flush creep up his neck. Sorrow? She saw sorrow in him. He thought he'd buried it deep enough that no one could find it. He tried to laugh, a short, sharp sound that fell out of place. "Sorrow? I just miss decent coffee. That's all." Her expression didn't change, but the glow on her form seemed to soften, becoming more luminous. "The pet," she continued, as if his attempt at deflection hadn't registered. "He is a juvenile. The bonding ritual is crucial for his transition. Without the proper resonance match, he will falter." Her voice held a note of genuine concern now, cutting through the initial strangeness. It was the first moment he saw something akin to vulnerability in her, something he could almost understand. A creature caring for another. He looked at the pet again. It had drifted closer, its multiple eyes blinking up at him, its antennae twitching tentatively. It didn't look like it was about to falter. But then again, he had zero experience with alien juvenile bonding rituals. He ran a hand through his hair, feeling the sweat beneath his worn cap. "Okay," he conceded, taking a slow breath. The strange thing was growing on him, strangely calming. "Okay, let's say, hypothetically, I do have this resonance, and let's say, hypothetically, it could help your pet. How would this, breeding, even work? What do I need to do?" He braced himself for something bizarre, something that involved alien biology he couldn't possibly comprehend. He expected a ritual, maybe, or some kind of energy transfer. He did not expect a response. Her luminous form seemed to brighten further, a ripple of violet and gold spreading across her sheath. "It is simple," she said, her voice taking on a low, intimate quality that made the hairs on his arms stand up. "The ritual requires proximity, shared space, a deep mutual resonance. You will share warmth, life force. He will absorb the necessary frequency." She took another step closer, reducing the distance between them to mere inches. The scent was stronger now, almost overwhelming, clouding his thoughts. He could feel the heat radiating from her form, a potent alien energy. Her dark eyes held his, and he felt a sudden, intense pull, a magnetic force drawing him in. His focus narrowed until only she existed in the dim light of the bay. He could feel his own heart pounding, a frantic rhythm against his ribs. The pet chittered again, a soft, hopeful sound. The tension in the air was palpable, thick with unspoken possibilities and profound misunderstanding. He wasn't sure what she meant by share warmth and life force, but standing this close to her, feeling the undeniable power of her presence, his rational mind was struggling to keep up. All he knew was that he felt an urge to close the small gap between them, to understand the strange creature and the mystery she presented. He took an involuntary step forward, his hand dropping from the conduit. The grime forgotten, the pet floated excitedly between them. He stood frozen, just inches from her, the warm, pulsing light of her form washing over him. The strange, intoxicating scent filled his lungs, making him feel lightheaded. He could see the intricate patterns on her sheath shifting and reforming, creating complex, flowing designs of light and color. They were like a language he couldn't read, a constant display of her internal state. Right now, the dominant colors were soft blues and violets, punctuated by slow, deliberate waves of golden light. It felt like curiosity, anticipation, and something else, something deeper and more profound. Her dark eyes were still fixed on his, their intensity unwavering. He felt completely exposed under that gaze, as if she could see every scar, every hidden wound, every piece of his broken past. The silence stretched between them, broken only by the soft chittering of the pet and the faint hum of the station's life support. "Proximity," he echoed, his voice barely a whisper. "Share warmth. Life force. That's all?" His translator seemed to be struggling again, defaulting to simple terms that felt inadequate for the raw intensity of the moment. He couldn't reconcile the concept of a simple ritual with the overwhelming sensory experience of being near her. It felt too significant, too charged for something so seemingly basic. She nodded slowly, her gaze never leaving his. "And trust," she added, her voice a low resonance that seemed echo inside him. "Deep trust. The resonance cannot harmonize without it." She raised her hand again slowly, until her fingertips brushed lightly against his cheek. Her touch was startlingly gentle, sending a shiver down his spine. Her skin felt cool and strangely smooth, like polished stone that held a hidden warmth. The light beneath her touch pulsed faintly. "You carry much sorrow," she murmured, her tone empathetic, not judgmental, "but also resilience. A strong song. He needs that strength." He closed his eyes for a brief second, leaning almost imperceptibly into her touch. No one ever spoken to him like that before, seeing past the rough exterior, acknowledging the weight he carried without demanding to know its source. Resilience and sorrow. Yeah, that about summed it up. When he opened his eyes, he met her gaze, and for the first time, he didn't feel the need to hide. "What happens after?" he asked, his voice quiet. After their ritual, the light on her form shifted, the golden waves becoming more prominent. He bonds. He transitions. And my purpose here is fulfilled. I can then return to my path. Her path? Was she an exile? A seeker? He realized he knew nothing about her, her species, her history. She was just this incandescent creature who had appeared in the dusty corners of his life, talking about pet breeding rituals and emotional resonances. And you would just leave? He asked, a strange sense of disappointment forming in his chest. He hadn't realized, until that moment, how compelling her presence was, how much it had already broken the monotony of his solitary existence. She paused, her fingers still resting lightly on his cheek. The golden light intensified, spreading like liquid fire beneath her sheath. It wasn't just her pattern shifting now. It felt like her very essence was changing, radiating something new. My path, she repeated, is fluid. It adapts. It is seeking connection, harmony. Her eyes searched his, and the intensity deepened, becoming something warmer, more personal. You have a strong harmony, Gale. She knew his name. He hadn't told her his name. He stiffened slightly. How do you know my name? A faint ripple, like amusement, crossed her glowing form. Your resonance, she explained simply. It carries a designation. Gale, it is strong. She lowered her hand again, but the warmth seemed to linger on his skin. We are similar, in a way, both adrift, seeking resonance. Adrift. Yeah, that was him. Cast off, floating in the void, trying to find something solid to anchor to. He looked at her again, at the shimmering form, the dark eyes, the pulsating lights. She was the most alien thing he had ever encountered, yet in that moment, standing so close, she felt strangely familiar, like a piece of the void he hadn't known he was missing. Okay, he said, taking a steadying breath. Okay, let's try it. The ritual, but you have to tell me everything. No more cryptic talk about songs and essence. Tell me exactly what this breeding means culturally. What happens? What are the risks? Everything. She nodded, a gentle incline of her head. The golden light settled, replaced by a soft, steady violet glow. Agreed, she said, her voice low and resonant. But first, the space, it must be private, secure. The resonance is fragile initially. Come, there is a shielded chamber deeper in the station. It will be suitable. She turned then, gliding away from him towards the deeper, darker sections of the derelict station. The pet followed, chittering softly. He watched her go, her glowing form a beacon in the dim light, a promise of answers and something profoundly unknown. He felt a knot of apprehension tighten in his gut, but it was overlaid with a potent surge of curiosity and a strange, undeniable pull toward the vibrant, sorrowful song she claimed resided within him. He wiped his dirty glove on his leg, leaving a smear of grease, and followed her into the labyrinthine heart of the decaying station. He still had no idea what he was getting into, but turning back felt impossible now. The scent of rain on metal and distant stars beckoned him forward. Following her through the winding corridors of the derelict station was like moving through a dreamscape. The scavenge lights were few and far between, casting long, distorted shadows. Her form was a constant, shifting source of light ahead of him, the patterns on her sheath flowing with every movement. The air grew colder the deeper they went, carrying the metallic tang of ancient decay. He could hear his own breathing, loud in the silence, interspersed with the soft chittering of the pet that bobbed along beside her. Gale's hand instinctively went to the sidearm holstered at his hip, a comfort he rarely found in the silence of space. He was a creature of habit, of caution, and every instinct screamed that following an unknown, glowing alien into the belly of a collapsing space station was a terrible idea. But a stronger current was pulling him forward. The pull of her presence, the mystery of her being, and the sheer, baffling absurdity of the situation. He needed to understand. He needed to know what she saw in him, the song or resonance she spoke of. They arrived at Blast Door, surprisingly intact, nestled in a corner of a large, silent cargo bay. Lyra. He realized he needed a name for her, and Lyra fit the melodic hum of her voice, gestured towards it. This chamber, she resonated, her voice soft but clear, was used for sensitive cargo. Its shielding will contain the resonance fluctuations. Gale approached the door, running a gloved hand over the pitted metal. The locking mechanism was ancient, but looked functional. He pulled a small multi-tool from his belt and began working on the override panel. The familiar feel of the controls, the click and where the old tech responding to his touch, was a grounding contrast to the ethereal alien beside him. While he worked, he risked a glance at her. She was watching him, her dark eyes reflecting the faint light from her own form. The patterns on her sheath were calm now, mostly soft blues, flowing like still water. He felt a flicker of self-consciousness under her steady gaze. He was just Gale, a man with grease under his fingernails and too many ghosts in his past. What did she see? Almost there, he muttered, more to himself than her. The panel hissed, and a heavy door slid open with a groan of protesting metal. Inside was a small, circular chamber, completely bare. The walls were lined with a dense, non-reflective material. It felt quiet, isolated. Perfect, he supposed, for containing whatever energy signature this breeding ritual involved. He stepped inside first, checking for any obvious hazards. The air felt different in here, still and heavy, devoid of the usual station drafts and echoes. Lyra followed, the pet floating in behind her. The door sealed shut behind them, plunging the chamber into near-total darkness save for the light emanating from Lyra and her pet. It wasn't enough to see by, but it cast their forms in soft, shifting outlines. The air immediately became thick with her strange, intoxicating scent. The small space amplified the resonance of her voice, the soft chittering of the pet, and the sound of his own breathing. He could feel her presence acutely in a confined space, a physical weight in the air. "So," he said, turning towards her, his voice sounding louder than he expected in the silence. "Tell me everything. No more riddles." She drifted closer until she was standing directly in front of him, in the near darkness. Her glowing form was the only thing he could focus on. He could see the intricate details of the patterns now, the subtle shifts in color, the delicate interplay of light beneath the surface. It was breathtakingly beautiful. "The pet," she began, her voice low and intimate. "He is a bond seeker. Our young must resonate with a compatible life form during their transition cycle to fully integrate their energetic matrix. It anchors them to the collective frequency. Energetic matrix. Collective frequency. Okay, more alien terms. And you need my song for that?" he asked, trying to keep the sarcasm out of his voice. "Your song," she corrected gently, "is unique. It is a fundamental frequency that resonates with profound survival, with adaptation, with enduring loss. These are the anchors a young bond seeker requires in the turbulent energy of transition." She reached out a hand again, not a touch, but hovering a few inches from his chest. The warmth radiated from her palm, soaking into him. The light on her form intensified, swirling with vibrant blues and golds. "My people, we are tied to the collective frequency. It is our strength, but also our vulnerability. When a young one transitions, their individual frequency is chaotic, prone to disruption. They must entwine it with a stable, foreign resonance to find balance. And humans," he mused, starting to piece it together, "are stable and foreign. Humans are intensely individual," she confirmed. "Your frequency is a singular note, strong and clear. And yours, Gale, as I perceive it. It carries the echoes of hardship overcome. It is a frequency of survival against odds. This is the anchor he requires." She nodded toward the pet, which had settled near her feet, its multiple eyes blinking slowly. It emitted a soft, contented purr. "My own resonance is too entwined with our collective. It would not provide the necessary anchor." He looked down at the pet, then back at her. The absurdity of it all was starting to fade, replaced by a grudging respect for the alien logic, however impenetrable it seemed. A baby alien needed to bond with a frequency of resilience. And he, Gale, professional survivor, fit the bill. But breeding? Why did you say breed? A ripple of golden light spread across her form, brighter this time, accompanied by a soft, resonant sound that might have been alien laughter. "My translator," she explained, her voice tinged with amusement, "used the closest Earth term for resonant entwining leading to progeny development. It is not biological procreation, as you understand it. It is an energetic bonding, a spiritual resonance transfer that facilitates a pet's development." Gale stared at her, then burst out laughing. It was a harsh sound in the small chamber, rusty from disuse. He laughed until his sides ached, until tears pricked at his eyes. All that confusion, all that weird tension, the thought of, with the pet. And it was just a translation error for spiritual bonding. He felt a wave of relief wash over him, followed by a fresh surge of awkwardness. "You thought I wanted to do that with a pet?" he choked out between laughs. Her form pulsed with that golden light again. "My translator's interpretation was literal," she resonated, the amusement clear in her tone now. "It does not grasp the nuances of human biological interaction or cultural taboos. It simply identified the outcome of the ritual in your species' terminology, the development of a new generation from a resonant pair." He wiped his eyes with the back of his hand, leaving another smear of grease. The humor of the situation, now that the disturbing implication was gone, was actually pretty funny. "Well," he said, a weary smile on his face, "that explains a lot. So, resonant entwining leading to progeny development, essentially I need to vibe with your pet?" She nodded, the light on her form settling back into a soft violet. "Precisely. You must allow your frequency to resonate freely within this shielded space. He will absorb the necessary anchors from your song." Her eyes, dark and deep, held his gaze. The laughter died down and the tension returned, different now. It wasn't confusing, slightly panicked tension of a bizarre proposition. It was something else. Something built on shared absurdity, on a sudden, surprising vulnerability, and the undeniable, potent presence of this strange, luminous creature. "The ritual," she said, her voice lowering, becoming intensely serious, "requires time and proximity. The space must be shared, fully, without barriers." Her gaze dropped from his eyes to his body, then back up. The golden light returned, stronger than before, swirling with the soft violet. The air thickened again with her unique scent. He felt a sudden, intense awareness of his own body, the worn fabric of his jumpsuit, the chill of the metal floor through his boots, the heat rising in his skin. The misunderstanding about the pet was cleared, but a new, far more potent tension had just ignited, filling the small, dark chamber with unspoken possibilities. The words hung in the air between them. Without barriers. The implication was clear, even to his thick-skulled, human mind. This resonant entwining, this vibe with the pet, required more than just standing in the same room. It required nakedness, vulnerability, not just emotional, but physical. In the near darkness of the shielded chamber, illuminated only by her light, the thought was both terrifying and strangely compelling. His gaze dropped involuntarily to her form, to the intricate, flowing patterns of light on her sheath. What lay beneath? He had no idea. His only experience with alien biology usually involved severed limbs and spilled fluids in the aftermath of a firefight. This was different, profoundly, unsettlingly different. He shifted his weight, the silence stretching between them, heavy with anticipation. The pet chittered softly, a sound of innocent expectation. He could feel the heat radiating from her, a potent drawing force. The air was thick with her scent, the intoxicating mix of rain, metal, and something that felt like the void itself. He was acutely aware of his own rough, human body, so solid and opaque compared to her luminous, shifting form. His worn jumpsuit suddenly felt like a cage. "Barriers," he repeated, his voice hoarse. He looked at her, searching her dark eyes for any sign of hesitation, any flicker of doubt. There was none, only calm certainty and that deep, ancient intensity. The golden light on her sheath swirled, interspersed with streaks of vibrant, alluring crimson. The crimson was new. It sparked something deep inside him, a primitive response he hadn't felt in years. "Yes," she confirmed, her voice a low resonance that seemed to bypass his ears and speak directly to his nervous system. The frequencies must merge, unimpeded. Your song gale, unshielded, unclothed. She didn't move, but the air crackled with an unseen energy emanating from her. He felt a pull, a drawing sensation, towards the center of her light. His mind raced, grappling with the implications. It wasn't about sex, not in the way he understood it, not with the pet anyway. It was about energy, resonance, but the requirement for physical nakedness, for shared space without the barrier clothing, felt undeniably intimate. It was vulnerability on a level he hadn't experienced in a long time. The last person he'd allowed to see him completely unprotected was. Well, that was a ghost he preferred not to disturb. He looked down at his hands, still marked with the grime of his work. He was just a salvage grunt, a broken soldier. What could a song possibly offer this luminous, seemingly powerful alien? Why me? He asked again, the question deeper this time. Out of everyone, why my sorrowful, resilient song? Her form pulsed, the crimson light flaring briefly. The bond seeker, she explained, her voice soft. He was traumatized. Our previous path was interrupted by hostility. He carries fear. Our collective frequency is now tainted with that fear. He requires an anchor that knows fear, but has overcome it, that knows loss, but still strives. Your song, Gale. It echoes these frequencies. It is pure resilience forged in hardship. Hardship. Yeah, he knew hardship. He knew fear. He knew loss. Too well. He looked at the pet huddled near her, its multiple eyes blinking slowly, seemingly unaware of the complex emotional and physical negotiation happening above it. He felt a strange pang of something akin to protectiveness. The small, chittering creature was scared, its energetic matrix disrupted, and his broken, rusty song was the key to healing it. The sheer, cosmic irony of it was almost overwhelming. He looked back at Lyra. Her light was steady now, a soft, inviting glow of violet and crimson. Her dark eyes watched him with patience, with expectation. There was no pressure, no command, just a quiet statement of need and the strange, powerful pull of her presence. This wasn't a transaction anymore. It was an invitation. An invitation to be seen completely by a creature who saw not his failures, but his resilience. An invitation to connect on a level beyond words or physical form. An invitation into the heart of something alien and beautiful. He took a deep breath, the strange scent filling his lungs. He looked at his worn jumpsuit, at his dirty hands. Barriers. He could keep them up, stay safe in his familiar isolation. Or he looked at Lyra again, at the quiet strength in her posture, the mesmerizing dance of light on her form, the vulnerability in her dark eyes as she spoke of her traumatized young. He thought of the cold, lonely vacuum of space, the endless cycles of scavenging and surviving, with no real purpose beyond the next credit chip. This was a purpose, a bizarre, alien purpose, but a purpose nonetheless. And maybe, just maybe, in this moment of profound, terrifying vulnerability, he could find something he hadn't even realized he was looking for. He reached up slowly, his hand trembling slightly, and began to pull down the zipper of his jumpsuit. The sound was loud in the silent chamber. Lyra's light pulsed, the crimson deepening, spreading like warmth through dark water. Her gaze held his, unwavering. He met her eyes, and for the first time he saw not just the alien, but the individual, the one who saw his sorrow and called it a song. The barriers were coming down, and the air in the small, shielded chamber thrummed with an intensity that promised not just the healing of a young alien pet, but perhaps the mending of a broken human soul. The path ahead was unknown, but he was stepping onto it, leaving his defenses in a pile on the floor of the silent room. The worn fabric of his jumpsuit fell to the floor with a soft rustle, leaving him standing exposed in the dim, shifting light of the shielded chamber. The air, thick with Lyra's unique scent, felt cool against his bare skin. He was acutely aware of himself, every scar, every imperfection laid bare under her silent gaze. It had been a long time since he'd felt this vulnerable, this completely seen. Lyra's form pulsed gently, the violet and crimson light swirling in mesmerizing patterns. Her dark eyes scanned him, slow and deliberate, and he had the distinct impression she was absorbing more than just his physical form. She was reading the history etched into his skin, the tension in his muscles, the subtle rhythm of his breathing. She took another step closer, reducing the distance until they were almost touching. Her form radiated heat, a deep, penetrating warmth that felt nothing like the sun or fire. It felt alive. Her strange, smooth skin seemed to shimmer with an internal energy. She reached out a hand, slowly, giving him time to flinch away if he needed to. He didn't. Her fingers, long and slender with iridescent nails, brushed lightly against his chest, just above his heart. Her touch was impossibly soft, sending a wave of sensation through him. The light beneath her skin pulsed stronger where she touched him, a gentle, rhythmic glow. "Your song," she resonated, her voice a low hum that vibrated through his chest. "It is strong here." Her fingers traced a path across his skin, following the line of a scar he'd gotten years ago, a memento from a forgotten skirmish. Her touch on the raised, uneven skin was both foreign and incredibly sensitive, awakening nerve endings that had long been dormant. He closed his eyes for a moment, focusing on the sensation, on the strange, potent energy flowing from her into him. It felt like recognition, not just of the scar, but of the story behind it, of the pain endured and the survival achieved. "Each mark tells a part of the song," she murmured, her touch lingering on the scar before moving lower, tracing the contours of his ribs, his abdomen. The light on her form intensified wherever she touched him, creating pools of vibrant violet and crimson on his skin. He felt a deep, unfamiliar ache in his chest, a longing he couldn't name. It wasn't just physical arousal, though that was certainly present, potent and undeniable in her presence. It was something deeper, an emotional yearning for connection, for acceptance, for the kind of understanding she seemed to offer without effort. He opened his eyes and met her gaze. Her dark eyes were intense, filled with a depth that spoke of ages and experiences beyond his comprehension. But there was something else there, too, something that mirrored the vulnerability he felt. A quiet anticipation, a gentle curiosity. The pet, forgotten for a moment, chittered softly near their feet, a gentle reminder of the ritual's purpose. "The bond seeker," Lyra resonated, shifting her gaze to the small creature. "He feels the resonance now. He requires the anchor." She lowered her hand from his chest, but the warmth of her touch lingered, replaced by the general heat radiating from her body. "We must entwine our frequencies, you and I, and he will absorb the harmony." He still didn't fully understand the mechanics of energetic matrices and resin entwining, but the intent was clear. It wasn't just about him and the pet anymore. It was about him and her, their frequencies, their songs, merging. In the silent, shielded chamber, naked and vulnerable under her gaze, the reality of their shared intimacy settled upon him. This wasn't just a cultural ritual for her pet. It was a profound connection between them. "Entwine," he repeated, the word feeling heavy on his tongue. He reached out a hand, tentatively, towards her. Her form was light, ethereal, but solid enough for his fingers to make contact. Her skin felt smooth and cool, yet vibrated with that deep internal warmth. It was a fascinating paradox. He could feel the subtle movement of the light patterns under his touch. She responded by pressing closer, until their bodies were almost touching. The heat from her form enveloped him, chasing away the chill of the chamber. Her unique scent was intoxicating, overwhelming his senses. He could feel the subtle shift of her weight, the alien grace of her movements. Her dark eyes held his, and the distance between them, physical and emotional, seemed to dissolve. There was only the two of them, the soft glow of her light, the hum of her presence, and the quiet chittering of the pet witnessing their strange communion. He wrapped his arms tentatively around her, his hands resting on her smooth, cool back. She felt impossibly light, yet substantial. He could feel the intricate patterns of light swirling beneath his palms. Lyra leaned into his embrace, resting her head against his shoulder, her form molded against his, a perfect alien fit. The light on her sheath pulsed with a powerful, golden surge, flowing from her into him, mingling with his own internal rhythm. He felt a profound sense of peace wash over him, a stillness he hadn't experienced in years. The ache in his chest eased, replaced by a quiet warmth that spread through his entire body. He stood there, holding her in the strange, luminous silence. The pet purred softly, the sound vibrating through the floor. He didn't understand the science, the alien ritual, but he understood the feeling. This was connection. This was trust. This was allowing another being to see you completely, flaws and all, and finding acceptance, even resonance, in their embrace. The walls he had built around himself, layer by layer over years of hardship and loss, felt like they were dissolving, melting away in the potent warmth of her alien light. He was vulnerable, exposed, and yet, for the first time in a long time, he didn't feel alone. The resonant entwining had begun, not just for the pet, but for him too. Hours bled together in the shielded chamber, marked only by the subtle shifts in Lyra's internal light and the deepening sense of shared stillness. Gale held her, their bodies pressed close, his human warmth mingling with the alien heat radiating from her form. The initial intensity had softened into a profound calm. The swirling patterns on her sheath flowed slowly now, a gentle dance of violet and gold, interspersed with occasional flashes of that deep crimson. The pet, having absorbed the necessary anchor from their combined resonance, had curled into a ball near their feet, emitting soft, regular purrs of contentment. He had fallen asleep at some point, a deep, dreamless sleep born of exhaustion and the strange peace her presence brought. He woke to the same soft light, the same intoxicating scent, the same gentle hum of her being close. His arms were still around her, her head still resting on his shoulder. He stirred, and she shifted with him, a smooth, fluid movement. "The bond seeker rests," she resonated softly, her voice barely above a whisper, vibrating against his ear. The transition resonance is stabilizing. He tightened his hold on her instinctively, not wanting to break the connection, the fragile peace they had found in the small chamber. "And your path?" he asked, the question tinged with the disappointment he felt earlier at the thought of her leaving. She raised her head, her dark eyes meeting his. The light in her frills pulsed softly. "My path brought me here," she resonated, "to find the necessary anchor for the bond seeker. To find" resonance. Her gaze lingered on his face, searching, assessing. "The ritual is complete for him, but the entwining between us, it is new, unexpected." The crimson light on her form pulsed, a slow, deliberate rhythm that felt like a question. The air between them thickened again, not with frantic tension this time, but with something deeper, heavier, charged with unspoken possibilities. The resonant entwining for the pet was finished, but their own connection, forged in vulnerability and shared space, was just beginning. He swallowed, his throat dry. "New? Unexpected? Our songs harmonized," she explained, her voice low and resonant. "Beyond the needs of the bond seeker. They resonated on a deeper frequency." "Hey!" Pairing frequency. She searched his eyes, and he saw a flicker of uncertainty, a vulnerability he hadn't expected from this powerful, alien being. "My path was to secure his future. It did not account for this." She gestured vaguely between them, the movement causing the light on her sheath to ripple. This, the naked closeness, the shared space, the vulnerability, the unexpected, profound connection that had bloomed in the heart of a derelict station. He understood. The ritual had been the catalyst, the reason for the proximity, but the true resonant entwining had happened between them. He felt a surge of hope, tentative and fragile, rise in his chest. He hadn't realized how much he wanted this connection, how much he had yearned for it in his solitary life. "So, what happens now?" he asked, his voice quiet. She didn't answer immediately. Her gaze dropped from his face to his body, then back up again. The crimson light intensified, spreading across her sheath like liquid fire. Her hand drifted up, her fingers tracing the line of his jaw. Her touch was still gentle, but there was an underlying current of intensity, of raw energy, that made his skin tingle. "The pairing frequency," she resonated, her voice a low hum that vibrated through his entire being, "it requires expression, integration. It is a powerful force, Gale. It seeks completion. He understood then the full weight of her initial misunderstanding, the alien interpretation of breeding. It wasn't just about the pet. It was about the fundamental drive of her species, or maybe just her, for resonant connection, for pairing, and in the quiet intimacy of the shielded chamber, their disparate frequencies had aligned, creating a bond that demanded expression. He leaned into her touch, his eyes closing again for a moment. The scent, the warmth, the soft hum of her voice. It was all-consuming, overwhelming his senses in the most profound way. He had spent so long guarding himself, shutting himself off, surviving in isolation. Now, faced with this luminous, alien creature who saw him, truly saw him, and resonated with the deepest parts of his being, the thought of letting go, of allowing that connection to deepen, was both terrifying and exhilarating. He opened his eyes and met her gaze. The crimson in her light was pulsing with a fierce, undeniable rhythm. Her eyes were dark pools, reflecting the intensity of her inner light. He saw anticipation there, a deep yearning that mirrored his own. The shielded chamber, designed to contain energy, now felt charged with energy that was entirely new, entirely theirs. The pet slept on, its purpose fulfilled, while a new, unexpected purpose unfolded between the human man and the alien woman. The barriers were gone, the songs had entwined, and the pairing frequency demanded its due. The next step into the unknown was both terrifying and inevitable. A sudden, jarring klaxon blared through the station, echoing even within the shielded chamber. The quiet stillness of their shared intimacy shattered instantly. Emergency. Something was wrong. Gale's body tense, his soldier's instincts kicking in. He pulled back from Lyra, grabbing for his discarded jumpsuit on the floor. The sudden interruption, the jarring sound, felt like a physical blow, ripping him away from the fragile peace they had found. "What is that?" Lyra resonated, her voice sharp with alarm. The light on her sheath pulsed frantically, shifting from soft violet and crimson to a blinding, anxious white. The pattern swirled like a storm. "Emergency alert," Gale said grimly, yanking on his jumpsuit. His hands fumbled with the zipper. Proximity warning, maybe, or hull breach. He listened, straining his ears over the wailing klaxon. There was a low, grinding sound now, distant but growing louder, like something massive tearing through metal. "Intrusion," Lyra stated, her form radiating pure distress. "Harmonic disruption. They are here." "Who's here?" Gale asked, pulling on his boots. He snatched his sidearm from the floor. "Slavers? Pirates?" He looked at Lyra. Her luminous form was a beacon of panic light in the chamber. The calm, confident alien was gone, replaced by a creature radiating pure fear. "Disruptors," she resonated, her voice high-pitched and trembling. "They hunt my kind. They seek to harvest our collective frequency." Harvest their frequency? That sounded bad. Really bad. He thought of the pet, still sleeping soundly on the floor, its young energetic matrix finally stabilizing. They were vulnerable. Lyra was vulnerable. He felt a surge of fierce protectiveness, raw and instinctive. This wasn't just about him anymore. This wasn't just about a weird alien ritual. This was about survival. Hers, the pet's, maybe even his own now that he was linked to her. "Okay," he said, forcing himself to think clearly. The klaxon was deafening. The grinding sound was closer. "We need to move. Now." He grabbed Lyra's hand. Her skin felt cool and strangely clammy now, the vibrant heat gone, and pulled her towards the blast door. "Can you override this thing from the inside?" She nodded, her form still radiating distress, but a flicker of golden light returned to her patterns. Focus. She placed her hand against the panel near the door. The intricate patterns on her sheath pulsed against the metal, mimicking the controls. There was a faint hum, and the heavy door groaned open again, revealing the dim, now terrifyingly noisy, corridor outside. The grinding sound was just down the hall, and it was accompanied by heavy, rhythmic footsteps. Gale peered around the edge of the doorframe. 3 figures were moving down the corridor towards them. They were bulky, encased in dark, segmented armor, carrying energy weapons that hummed with sinister power. They moved with a brutal, efficient grace, their weapons sweeping back and forth. Disruptors. Get the pet, Gale said, his voice low and urgent. Stay behind me. He positioned himself in the doorway, weapon raised. His heart was pounding, a frantic rhythm against his ribs. Fear was a familiar companion, but this time it was sharper, amplified by Lyra's palpable terror and the vulnerability of the sleeping pet. Lyra scooped up the pet, holding it close to her chest. The white light on her form flared, trying to shield the small creature. She pressed herself against the wall behind Gale. The disruptors were close now, their heavy boots echoing in the corridor. He could hear their harsh, guttural language, distorted by their helmets. They sense us. Lyra resonated, her voice trembling. My frequency signature, the pairing. It is a beacon to them. The pairing frequency. The unexpected connection that had blossomed between them in the stillness. It wasn't just a source of intimacy. It was a liability, a target. He was linked to her now, a part of the song they sought to harvest. The stakes had just escalated beyond anything he could have imagined. The lead disruptor rounded the corner, its helmeted head snapping towards the open blast door. It raised its weapon. Gale fired first. The energy bolt from his old sidearm was weak compared to the disruptor's weapon, but it was enough to make the armored figure stumble, its weapon discharging harmlessly into the ceiling. Go! Gale yelled at Lyra. Go back the way we came. Find another exit. Lyra hesitated for a fraction of a second, her dark eyes meeting his. In that moment, he saw not just fear, but a flash of fierce determination. She nodded, clutched the pet tighter, and turned, gliding away down the corridor. Gale laid down, suppressing fire, forcing the disruptors to take cover. He wasn't a soldier anymore. Not really, but the old reflexes kicked in, sharp and precise. He emptied the charge pack of his sidearm, then turned and sprinted after Lyra. He could hear the heavy footsteps of the disruptors pursuing him, the crackle of their weapons against the metal walls, the shielded chamber, the quiet intimacy, the fragile peace. It all felt like a distant dream. Reality was loud, violent, and terrifyingly immediate. He was running from something he didn't understand, protecting a creature he barely knew, bound by an unexpected pairing frequency that had just become a death sentence. His life, which had been drifting aimlessly, was suddenly propelled forward by a force far greater than himself. And he knew, with chilling certainty, that this was just the beginning. He ran faster, his lungs burning, the sound of pursuit echoing behind him, a grim counterpoint to the silent, luminous presence he was trying to protect. He ran, fueled by adrenaline and a primal need to keep the luminous form ahead of him safe. Lyra was fast, gliding effortlessly through the cluttered corridors, her form still radiating a panic white light, but moving with surprising agility. The pet was a furry ball clutched tight to her chest. Behind them, the heavy footsteps of the disruptors echoed relentlessly, punctuated by the whine of their weapons searching for a target. Gale risked a glance back. They weren't far behind. They moved with a chilling efficiency, cutting off escape routes, herding their prey. Which way? Gale gasped, reaching a junction. The station layout was a maze of scavenged additions and structural decay. He knew the main paths, but Lyra had led him deep into unexplored territory. Lyra paused for a split second, her head tilting as if listening to something he couldn't hear. Her light pulsed, a rapid-fire sequence of white and silver. This way, she resonated, pointing down a narrow, unstable-looking passage. The resonance signature is weakest here. Structural instability provides cover. Not exactly reassuring, but he trusted her strange senses over his limited knowledge of the sector. He plunged into the passage after her. It was tight, forcing him to twist and squeeze past collapsed sections of wall and dangling conduits. The grinding noise of the disruptor's heavy breaching tools was getting closer. They were tearing through the bulkheads, not bothering with doors. They want the bond seeker? Gale yelled, his voice muffled. They want the frequency. Lyra responded, her voice strained. The pure, untainted frequency of a young one in transition. They twist it, use it for their own purposes. harvesting frequencies, twisting them. The horror of it sent a chill down his spine. His own song, anchored in sorrow and resilience, was now intertwined with this pure, vulnerable frequency. He was a part of what they hunted. They burst out a narrow passage into a larger, open space, what looked like a derelict hydroponics bay. The air was thick with the smell of stale fertilizer and decay. Moonlight streamed through a gaping hole in the ceiling, illuminating the skeletal remains of nutrient vats and irrigation pipes. It wasn't much cover. There, Lyra resonated, pointing to a smaller access tunnel on the far side of the bay. Through there, it leads to the outer docking ports. They sprinted across the open space, their footsteps loud on the metal grating. The disruptors were right behind them, emerging from a narrow passage with surprising speed. Energy bolts lanced out, sizzling past Gale, impacting the metal walls with deafening cracks. He dove behind a collapsed vat, pulling Lyra down with him. "My ship," he yelled over the noise. "It's docked at port 7. If we can reach it, they will anticipate that." Lyra resonated, her form pressed against his side, radiating fear and a desperate energy. The white light was blinding. They know the common exit points. His ship, his only way out. If it was compromised, he felt a wave of despair. They were trapped. The disruptors were fanning out across the bay, their heavy footsteps crunching on debris. The hum of their weapons was a terrifying symphony of pursuit. Suddenly, Lyra pushed herself up, her form blazing with light. The white was mixed with bursts of brilliant gold and a fierce, radiant violet. "The frequency," she resonated, her voice stronger now, charged with a strange, alien power. "I can disrupt their localized harmonic sensors. It will buy us time." "What? How?" Gale asked, but she was already moving, stepping out from behind the vat, exposing herself to the incoming fire. "My paired frequency," she cried out, her voice rising in pitch, becoming a complex, multi-layered resonance that seemed to fill the entire bay. Her form pulsed violently, sending out waves of intense light that seemed to ripple through the air itself. The glowing patterns on her sheet spun and reformed at dizzying speed, creating complex, geometric designs of pure light. The disruptors hesitated. Their movements faltered. The humming of their weapons wavered. It was working. Lyra was using their shared pairing frequency, his song intertwined with hers, as a weapon, a disruption field. But it was clearly taking its toll. Her form flickered, the intensity of the light almost painful to look at, then dimmed significantly, the vibrant colors draining away, leaving only a faint, exhausted violet glow. She stumbled, falling to her knees. "Lyra!" Gale scrambled to her side, shielding her body with his own. The disruptors were recovering, shaking their heads, their weapons humming back to life. Her disruption hadn't stopped them, just confused them for a moment. "Go!" she whispered, her voice weak, the resonance almost gone. "Take the bond seeker." "The tunnel? I cannot. I am depleted." "Take the pet and leave her?" "No way." The thought was immediate and absolute. He wouldn't leave her. Not after. Not after the shielded chamber, the shared vulnerability, the unexpected connection. "Not a chance," he said firmly, wrapping an arm around her, helping her to her feet. She was trembling. "We go together." He half carried, half dragged her toward the access tunnel, shielding her with his body as energy bolts screamed past. The pet, jolted awake by the noise and chaos, chittered frantically. He reached the tunnel opening and shoved Lyra inside, then dove in after her, pulling the pet in two. The narrow passage offered some protection, but he knew it wouldn't hold the disruptors for long. He pressed himself against the cold metal wall, Lyra leaning heavily against him, her light barely a flicker now. The heavy footsteps and tearing metal sounds outside confirmed their relentless pursuit. They were trapped, vulnerable, and the unexpected connection that had offered such strange comfort was now the very thing that had led the hunters to their door. The fragile bond was tested, not by internal conflict, but by the brutal reality of the hostile galaxy outside their small, rapidly shrinking haven. Pressed together in the narrow access tunnel, the sound of the disruptors tearing into the hydroponics bay echoed around them. Metal shrieked and groaned. Lyra's body was heavy and trembling against his, her light barely a whisper now, a faint, exhausted violet. The pet, clutched between them, whimpered softly. Gale held them both tight, his heart pounding a frantic rhythm against his ribs. His sidearm was useless without a charge pack, his multi-tool just a piece of metal. He was back to basics. Survival through hiding, through silence, through hoping the predators would miss him in the dark. Lyra's resonance was weak, her voice a thin thread of sound. They sense your song, entwined with mine, and the bond seekers, she whispered, her breath ragged. It is a unique signature. Powerful, desirable. Desirable? He felt a flicker of grim amusement. His broken song, desirable to these brutal hunters. The irony was bitter. Great, he muttered. So, my personal brand of misery is attracting psycho-aliens. A faint ripple, like a weak wave, passed through Lyra's form, a ghost of her earlier amusement. Not misery, she resonated, her voice gaining a fraction of strength. Resilience, hope born of despair, a rare frequency. Hope, he hadn't thought of himself that way in years. Despair, sure. Resilience may be out of necessity. But hope, that felt like a foreign concept. And yet, holding her, feeling her fragile weight against him, sensing the vulnerable life of the pet between them, he felt something stir within him that was perilously close to it. Hope that they might get out of this. Hope that this strange, alien connection might survive. The sounds from the bay outside grew louder, the tearing metal closer. They were systematically dismantling the structure, searching every corner. Gale knew they couldn't stay hidden here for long. This tunnel was a dead end, leading only to a collapsed section further in. We need a plan, he said, his voice low and urgent. Is there another way out of here? Anywhere? Lyra was silent for a moment, her body still trembling. He felt a faint pulse of golden light emanate from her, weak but steady. It felt like focus, like calculation. There is a service shaft, she resonated slowly. Below us. It is small, unstable, used for waste disposal. It might provide passage to a lower level near the outer hull. A waste disposal shaft, small and unstable. Not ideal, but better than waiting to be found. Can we access it from here? Perhaps, she resonated, if we can displace the grating. It is shielded. Shielded, meaning his multi-tool wouldn't cut it. He looked around a confined space. Nothing. Just cold, unforgiving metal and dust motes dancing in the faint light from Lyra's form. He needed something heavy, something strong. His gaze fell on a section of the tunnel wall. It looked older, weaker than the rest. Maybe. He pressed his shoulder against it, testing its strength. It gave slightly, a faint groan of protesting metal. It was possible, if he could dislodge a large enough piece. Shielded grating, he murmured, thinking aloud. But what if the shield isn't active? He remembered something from the station schematics he'd seen in the main hub. These older service shafts often had local power conduits that could be manually overridden, but they were notoriously unreliable, prone to blowing out or causing feedback loops. He pointed to the section of the wall he'd tested. I might be able to force this open. There might be a conduit behind it, if I can overload the local power. Maybe disable the grating shield? Lyra's light pulsed. A disruption of local energy flow, she resonated. It could work, but it is dangerous. An uncontrolled energy surge could cause cascade failure. Cascade failure. The whole section of the station could collapse, including the tunnel they were in. He weighed the risk. Waiting meant certain capture. Trying this meant potential death by structural collapse or energy surge, but also a chance, however slim, of escape. It's a risk we have to take, he said, his decision made. Can you locate the conduit? Lyra pressed her hand against the wall near the weak section. Her light pulsed rapidly, scanning. Yes, she resonated after a moment. Behind this panel, the access is restricted. Restricted meant bolted down, probably welded over. Fine, he was good at getting past restrictions. He needed a lever, something to pry. He looked around the cramped tunnel again. There was a bent pipe sticking out a wall further down. Not ideal, but maybe. The sounds outside intensified. The disruptors were in the hydroponics bay now, the crash of metal echoing. They were close. Time was running out. Gale carefully released Lyra, telling her to stay low with the pet. He crawled down the tunnel to the bent pipe, straining to loosen it. It was welded tight. He swore under his breath. Suddenly, Lyra's light flared, not with panic this time, but with focus. She pressed herself against the wall near the weak section. "Gale," she resonated, her voice stronger. "My song, the pairing frequency. I can focus the energy. A directed pulse. It may weaken the metal." He stared at her. Use their connection, their paired frequency, as a tool to weaken metal? It sounded insane. But then again, everything about this situation was insane. He trusted her. He had to. "Okay," he said, crawling back to her. "Tell me what to do." "Proximity," she resonated, her dark eyes meeting his, filled with fierce determination. Shared energy. Focus. She pressed herself close to him again, their bodies touching. The faint light of her form warmed his skin. The strange scent filled his lungs. She placed a hand flat against the wall panel. "Place your hand here. Focus your intent. Survival. Escape. Direct your song. With mine." He placed his hand over hers on the cold metal panel. He closed his eyes, trying focus. Survival. Escape. He thought of the vast, uncaring void outside, the dangers that lurked there. He thought of his lonely life, his buried pain. He thought of Lyra, vulnerable and radiant, and the small, frightened creature she protected. He poured his will, his song, whatever that meant, into his hand, into their shared touch. Lyra's light surged. Not the chaotic, panicked white from earlier, but a focused, intense beam of pure golden energy that emanated from her hand, through his, and into the metal panel. He felt a vibration beneath his palm, a deep hum that resonated in his bones. The metal panel began to glow red-hot beneath their touch. The hum intensified, rising in pitch. Gale gritted his teeth, pouring all his will into the effort, his muscles straining, his focus absolute. Their combined songs, their entwined frequencies, were being channeled, directed, used as a force against the physical world. It was an act of intimacy, of trust, of shared desperation, unlike anything he'd ever experienced. The sounds of the disruptors outside were fading, forgotten in the intensity of the moment. The air crackled with energy. The metal panel shrieked. And for a terrifying, exhilarating moment, Gale felt not like a broken man hiding in the dark, but like a conduit for something powerful, something ancient, something intrinsically linked to the luminous creature beside him. The panel buckled inwards with a final, tortured scream of tortured metal, revealing a dark void behind it. The metal panel collapsed inwards with a deafening clang, sending sparks and debris flying. A gust of stale, foul-smelling air rushed out from the opening. The service shaft. It was dark, narrow, and looked like it hadn't been accessed in centuries. But it was a way out. Lyra stumbled back, her light flickering violently, the golden intensity draining away, leaving her form faint and trembling. The effort had clearly taken a tremendous toll. The shield. "It is weakened," she resonated, her voice thin and shaky. For a short time, Gale didn't hesitate. He grabbed Lyra around the waist, supporting her weakened form. "Can you move?" She nodded, a small jerky movement. "Yes, but slowly." "All right, we're going down." He carefully maneuvered her toward the opening, shielding her with his body. The pet, still clutched in her arms, chittered nervously at the sudden change in air quality and direction. He peered down the shaft. It was a vertical drop, maybe 50 feet, ending in a pile of decaying refuse. There were old maintenance ladders running down the side, but they looked rusted and unstable. Not ideal for someone weakened and carrying a pet. "Okay," he said, thinking fast. "There's no ladder. We'll have to go the hard way." He had rappelled down worse things in his soldiering days. He just needed something to anchor a line to. He scanned the damaged wall around the shaft opening. There was a thick, exposed girder nearby, sturdy enough to hold their weight. "Can you hold a pet?" he asked Lyra. She nodded, holding the small creature tighter. Her form was still faint, radiating a weak violet glow. He didn't like seeing her like this, so diminished, so vulnerable. It stirred a fierce protectiveness in him, a desire to see her light return, to see the vibrant energy flow through her again. He quickly unslung a coil of durable utility cord from his pack. He secured one end around the girder, testing the knot and the anchor point thoroughly. Survival ingrained caution. He threaded the other end through a loop on his belt, creating a makeshift harness. "All right," he said, turning back to her. "I'm going down first. I'll keep the line taut. I need you to feed the line out as I go, slowly and steadily. Can you do that?" She nodded again, her dark eyes fixed on his. "I will guide the line," she resonated. Her voice was weak, but held a thread of focus. He positioned himself at the edge of the opening. "Stay close to the wall. Don't look down. Just feed the line." He took a deep breath, testing his weight against the cord, then eased himself over the edge, his boots finding purchase against the side of the shaft. Going down the service shaft was a slow, precarious process. The air was thick with the smell of decay and stagnant water. He moved carefully, his boots scraping against the metal walls, guiding the line through his harness. Above him, he could see Lyra's faint light at the opening, her form silhouetted against the dim light of the damaged corridor. He could feel the subtle tension on the line, her steady hand feeding it out. He reached the bottom, landing softly on the pile of refuse. It shifted beneath him, releasing a cloud of foul-smelling dust. "Okay, I'm down," he called up. "Send down the pet first. I'll catch him." He looked up. Lyra's light pulsed faintly. He saw her gently lower the pet, secured in a makeshift sling she created with something from her form. The pet whimpered as it descended, its eyes wide. Gale reached up, catching the small creature as it reached the bottom. It was surprisingly light. He set it down gently beside him. "Now you," he called to Lyra. "Careful. Take it slow." He kept the line taut, guiding her as she began her descent. He could see her faint light moving down the shaft, slow and deliberate. The effort seemed immense for her in her weakened state. He saw her stumble once, her body hitting the side of the shaft, and his heart leaped into his throat. He tightened his grip on the line, bracing himself, ready to take her full weight if she fell. But she recovered, continuing her slow descent. He watched her come closer, her luminous form growing brighter as she neared the bottom. He could hear her ragged breathing now, a soft, alien sound in the close confines of the shaft. Finally, her feet touched the bottom. She stumbled slightly, collapsing against him, her body trembling. "Are you okay?" he asked, wrapping his arms around her, supporting her weight. She leaned heavily against him, burying her face against his chest. Her light was barely aglow now, like a dying ember. "Depleted," she resonated, her voice muffled. The frequency, it was too much. He held her tight, stroking her back, trying to offer whatever human comfort he could to this utterly alien being. He could feel the faint, slow pulse of her light against his hand. The shared desperation, the vulnerability, the sheer physical proximity in the dark, foul-smelling shaft created an intense, raw intimacy that surpassed words. He had risked his life for her. She had expended her energy for him. And together, they had channeled their combined essence to break through a barrier. The pairing frequency wasn't just about abstract energy anymore. It was about shared struggle, mutual reliance, and a bond forged in the crucible of danger. They were safe, for now, hidden in the waste of the station. But Lyra was weak, vulnerable, and the disruptors were still out there, hunting. The danger was far from over, and the weight of their shared fate settled heavily upon him. The quiet intimacy of the shielded chamber felt 1,000,000 miles away, replaced by the stark, visceral reality of survival side by side. Lyra was barely conscious. Her body slumped against him in a cramped service shaft. Her light was so faint now, he could barely see the outline of her form in the darkness. The pet, sensing her distress, nudged her hand with its furry head, chittering softly. Gale held her tight, feeling the tremors that ran through her body. The air in the shaft was stagnant and cold, amplifying the pervasive smell of decay. He tried to think, to plan their next move. The shaft led down, presumably toward the outer hull levels, maybe even empty cargo bays or maintenance access points closer to the exterior. But getting her there in her condition was going to be difficult. She couldn't walk, couldn't use her light to guide them, couldn't use her resonance for anything. She was completely reliant on him. He shifted, trying to find a more comfortable position for them both. The metal floor was cold and hard. He eased her down gently until she was half sitting, half lying against his leg, wrapped his arms. He pulled off his worn jacket and draped it over her shoulders, a meager shield against the chill. It felt absurdly inadequate compared to the vibrant heat her form usually radiated. "Lyra," he murmured, his voice low, "can you hear me?" A faint pulse of light responded, a tiny flicker in the overwhelming darkness. "Gale," she resonated, her voice barely audible, weak and reedy, devoid of its usual depth. Cold. Frequency fading. Her frequency was fading? Was that bad? Really bad? He felt a wave of fear. He didn't understand her biology, her energy state. Was she dying? "Hey, no fading," he said, trying to keep his voice steady, even as panic clawed at his throat. He rubbed her arms, trying to generate some warmth. "Stay with me, okay? Just rest. We'll get out of this." He looked at the pet. It was pressing itself against Lyra, emitting a soft, continuous purr. It seemed to be trying to comfort her, maybe even share its own nascent energy. Was there anything he could do? He was just a human, with no glowing forms or resonant frequencies. He had nothing to give her but his physical presence, his warmth, his sheer stubborn will to survive. He remembered her words in the shielded chamber. Share warmth. Life force. A deep mutual resonance. That was the ritual. That was a resonant entwining for the pet. But she had also said it required expression, integration, seeking completion for them. Could that same principle apply now? Could his song, his mere human energy help her? He tightened his embrace, pulling her closer, pressing his bare chest against her back. He tried to focus, not on escape or danger, but on her fragile light, her weak resonance. He thought of the warmth he felt when their forms were pressed together, the strange peace. He tried to channel that feeling now, focusing his own internal energy, his heartbeat, his breath, his body heat, into her. It felt awkward, clumsy, compared to the elegant flow of energy she had demonstrated. He was just warm and solid. He murmured to her, words of comfort, of reassurance, anything he could think of, his voice rough in the silence. He spoke about anything and nothing, about the stars, about decent coffee, about the quiet hum of a ship's engines. He wasn't sure if she could even hear him, if his human words, even filtered to the translator, meant anything to a creature whose communication seemed to transcend language. But he had to try. He had to do something. He held her like that for what felt like an eternity, huddled in the dark, cold shaft, listening to the distant sounds of the disruptors still searching above them. He poured all his focus, all his internal energy, into the simple act of holding her, of sharing his warmth, his physical presence, his stubborn song of survival. He could feel her breathing slowly steady, the trembling in her body lessen. Her light, still faint, seemed to regain a tiny bit of its intensity, shifting from a weak violet back towards a softer blue. After a long while, she stirred, pressing back against him. Her hand, still cool but no longer clammy, found his and squeezed it weakly. "Gale," she resonated, her voice still weak but clearer. "Your warmth, your song, it anchors me." Relief washed over him, so potent it made him lightheaded. He hadn't realized how afraid he had been, how much he had feared losing her. "Just stay here," he murmured, holding her closer. "Save your strength." He listened. The sounds of the disruptors were further away now, muffled by distance in the layers of the station's structure. They must have moved on, assuming they'd lost their prey, or that the shaft was impassable. They weren't safe yet, not by a long shot, but they had bought themselves some time. He remained in that position, holding Lyra, sharing his warmth, his song, with her. The fear was still there, a low thrum beneath his skin, but was tempered now by the quiet intimacy of the moment, by the profound sense of connection he felt holding this extraordinary, vulnerable being. He wasn't just surviving anymore. He was protecting, providing, sharing his fundamental essence with another. The misunderstanding that brought them together now seemed almost comical, a bizarre prelude to this raw, elemental bond forged in danger and desperation. He felt a strange sense of rightness, of belonging in the cold, dark, foul-smelling shaft, holding the luminous creature and the chittering pet. This was his purpose now, his path. And it wasn't adrift anymore. Time was a fluid concept in the dark, silent shaft. Gale held Lyra, her breathing steady now, her light still faint but stable, a soft blue glow against his chest. The pet slept soundly between them, a small, warm weight. The sound of the disruptors had faded entirely, replaced by the deep silence of the station and the soft rhythm of their shared breaths. Lyra was regaining her strength, slowly, drawing something essential from their proximity, from a shared warmth and song. He could feel it, a subtle shift in her energy, a gradual strengthening of her fragile resonance. After what felt like hours, Lyra stirred fully, shifting in his arms. Her light pulsed, a soft wave of violet spreading across her form. She raised her head, her dark eyes meeting his in the dimness. "The disruptors," she resonated, her voice stronger, regaining some of its usual depth. "They are gone from this sector. For now," Gale added grimly. "They'll be back. They know we're on the station. We must reach the outer hull," she resonated. "There's a lower service port. Infrequently used. We might reach it before they secure all exits." Getting there meant navigating the lower levels of the station through unknown territory, while staying hidden from hunters who could track Lyra's frequency. It was a long shot, but their only shot. "Can you move?" he asked. She nodded, pushing herself up slowly. Her light was still dim, but no longer fading. The soft blue was deepening into a calmer violet. "I have regained some strength," she resonated. "Enough to travel." He eased back, allowing her to stand. She was still unsteady, leaning against the cold metal wall for support. He stood beside her, ready to catch her as she faltered. The pet, sensing movement, stirred and stretched, emitting a soft purr. "We go together," Gale said, stating the obvious. The idea of separating, of going back to a solitary existence, felt impossible now. Lyra met his gaze. Her dark eyes held a depth of understanding he hadn't seen before. The soft violet light on her form pulsed with quiet intensity. "Together," she resonated, the word holding the weight of their shared experience, their entwined songs. They began to move, slowly at first, crawling deeper into the service shaft. Gale went first, guiding the way, sweeping the narrow passage ahead with the weak light from his multi-tool. Lyra followed close behind, her own faint light a guiding presence in the darkness. The pet nestled securely in her arms. The shaft was filled with debris, rusted pipes, and stagnant puddles, making every step treacherous. The air was thick with decay, pressing in on them. As they moved, Lyra's light gradually strengthened. The soft violet deepened, and flashes of gold and crimson began to reappear in her patterns, flowing like hesitant brushstrokes across her sheath. Gale watched the transformation, a sense of wonder filling him. He had helped in some small way, his human presence acting as an anchor, a source of strength for this incredible alien being. It was a profound realization. They reached a junction in the shaft, where a horizontal passage branched off. Lyra paused, her light pulsing as she sensed the surroundings. "This way," she resonated, pointing down the horizontal path, toward the exterior. The horizontal shaft was wider, slightly less cramped, but still unstable. Gale moved ahead, constantly checking for hazards. They crawled, they shuffled, they squeezed through tight spaces, the sounds of their movement muffled by the decaying walls. The entire time, Lyra was close behind him, a constant presence, her light growing stronger, more vibrant with every passing minute. The intimacy of their shared vulnerability in the dark, dangerous passages was a powerful counterpoint to the external threat. They moved as one unit, relying on each other, a single, fragile point of light and resilience against the vast, hostile darkness of the station. Hours crawled by. The layout of the service shafts was a disorienting maze. They encountered collapsed sections that forced them to backtrack, unstable floors that threatened to give way, and pockets of toxic gas that sent them scrambling for breath. Gale's body ached with exhaustion, his muscles screaming in protest. But he pushed on, driven by the silent, unwavering presence of Lyra behind him. Her light was much stronger now, casting a soft glow in the shaft. The violet and gold were vibrant again, flowing in intricate patterns, a visual symphony of regaining strength. The crimson had returned too, a warm, steady pulse that resonated with his own fatigue and determination. He could feel her presence, not just physically, but energetically, a warm current flowing beside his own. Almost there, Lyra resonated, her voice regaining its usual depth and resonance. I can sense the outer hull, the cold void beyond. Hope surged in him, potent and exhilarating. They were close to getting off this death trap, away from the hunters. He pushed faster, ignoring the ache in his limbs. They finally reached a large access panel. It was old, rusted, but looked intact. This had to be it, an access point to the outer hull. Gale knelt, examining the panel. The locking mechanism was complex, but not impossible. It would take time, though precious time they might not have. "Can you give me cover?" he asked Lyra, pulling out his multi-tool. His sidearm was still useless. Lyra nodded. Her form blazed, the light intensifying to a fierce, protective golden hue. She positioned herself behind him, facing back the way they came, her light focused on the narrow passage, ready to alert him to any approaching threat. The pet, secure in her arms, peeked out, its multiple eyes blinking. Gale began working on the panel, his fingers flying across the controls, relying on years of salvage tech experience. Every second felt like an eternity. The silence of the shaft was unnerving, broken only by the click and whir of his multi-tool and the sound of his own ragged breathing. He was acutely aware of Lyra behind him, her light a warm presence against his back, her song a silent harmony with his own focused intensity. Suddenly, Lyra's light flared, shifting to a rapid, urgent sequence of white and crimson. "They are here," she resonated, her voice sharp with alarm. "Close." He didn't look up. "How long?" "Seconds," she resonated. "They are breaching the level above us. Moving fast." "Seconds." Not enough time. He gritted his teeth, working faster, his movement precise, desperate. The panel cover was loose, but the locking bolts were still holding. He needed to override them. He could hear the faint sounds of tearing metal again, closer this time, echoing through the station's structure. The disruptors were closing in, relentless. He felt a surge of despair. So close. Lyra stepped forward, placing a hand on his shoulder. Her light pulsed, a soft, calming blue. "Gale," she resonated, her voice quiet but firm. "Leave it. We cannot reach the port in time. It is too far to the ship." "But they track my frequency," she cut him off, her voice resonating with a calm certainty that surprised him. "They will find us if we stay. There is another way." He looked at her, confused. Another way? What other way was there? They were at the bottom of a dead-end shaft. The only exit sealed. Her light pulsed, the blue deepening, spreading across her form like a deep, tranquil ocean. The golden and crimson lights were still there, but submerged, contained. "My song, the pairing frequency," she resonated, her dark eyes holding his. "It can be shielded, masked, but not by metal, not by technology." He waited, his breath held. What did she mean? She raised her free hand, reaching towards his face. Her fingers were still long and slender, tipped with iridescent nails, but they no longer felt fragile. They felt strong, resonant. "By another song," she resonated, her voice dropping to a low, intimate hum that vibrated through his bones. "By a complete, resonant integration, a joining that masks the individual notes within a shared, singular harmony. A complete integration, a joining." The words echoed the pairing frequency she had spoken of in the shielded chamber, the expression and completion it sought. But this felt more profound, more urgent. She wasn't talking about energetic resonance anymore. Not just. He looked at her, at the unwavering certainty in her dark eyes, at the serene blue spreading across her luminous form. The sounds of the approaching disruptors were growing louder, the tearing metal, the heavy footsteps. Time had run out for conventional escape. "You mean—" he started, his voice rough. "You mean now? Here? To hide us?" She nodded slowly, her gaze unwavering. "To become one frequency. To mask our individual songs within the harmony of a fully integrated pairing. It is the deepest form of shielding my kind possesses, but it requires absolute resonance, absolute trust, absolute joining. Joining, fully integrated, shielded by becoming one. In the dark, dirty service shaft, surrounded by the sound of imminent danger, Lyra wasn't offering him escape. She was offering him a level of intimacy that transcended anything he'd ever known, a merging of not just bodies, but a fundamental being. His song of sorrow and resilience, her song of collective frequency and vulnerability, and the young pet's pure, frightened note, all would be woven together, hidden within the powerful, singular harmony of their complete pairing. It was the ultimate act of trust, of surrender, a desperate gamble that their unexpected connection was strong enough to shield them from hunters. He looked at her, at the quiet strength in her eyes, and knew that his answer was not a choice, but a destiny he had been unknowingly walking toward since he first saw her light in the darkness of the station. The tearing metal was closer. There was no time for doubt, no time for fear, only time for joining. The sounds of the disruptors were pounding closer, echoing through the metal walls. The air in the shaft vibrated with their heavy footsteps and the tearing of metal. There was no more time for thought, for hesitation. Lyra's dark eyes held his, filled with quiet intensity that transcended the fear surrounding them. Her form was bathed in that deep, serene blue light, a stark contrast to the violent chaos approaching. "Absolute joining," he murmured, his voice raspy. He reached out, his hands finding her face, cupping her smooth, cool skin. Her light pulsed gently against his palms. The scent of rain on metal and distant stars was stronger than ever, filling his senses, drowning out the fear. She leaned into his touch, her eyes never leaving his. "Yes," she resonated, her voice a low hum that vibrated through his fingers, up his arms, into his very core. "Let our songs become one symphony." He didn't understand the mechanics. He didn't need to. He understood the trust, the need, the profound vulnerability that lay between them. He closed the remaining distance, bringing his forehead to rest against hers. Her skin felt impossibly smooth and cool against his brow, yet it vibrated with a deep, internal energy. Her unique scent enveloped him, pulling him deeper into the moment. He felt a surge of energy, not just his own, but hers, flowing into him, mingling with his own song. It wasn't just warmth this time. It was a current, a river of light and sound and feeling that flowed between them, through them, around the pet nestled between their bodies. Lyra's light intensified, not with panic, but with a calm, powerful radiance that seemed to absorb the darkness around them. The blue light deepened to an almost indigo hue, interspersed with slow, deliberate waves of golden light that pulsed in perfect synchronization with his own heartbeat. He could feel the intricate patterns on her sheath shifting and reforming under his touch, mirroring the complex flow of energy he felt within him. It was overwhelming, beautiful, terrifying. His own consciousness seemed to expand, merging with hers, encompassing not just his own thoughts and feelings, but echoes of hers. Not clear words, but sensory impressions, emotional states, fragments of alien experience. He felt the vastness of the void, the ancient connection of her species, the vulnerable purity of the bond-seeker's frequency, all woven together with his own grounded reality, his history of sorrow and resilience. The sound of the disruptors reached the access panel, their heavy boots echoing in the shaft. He heard the scrape of metal as they began to work on a lock, the low hum of their tools. But the sound seemed distant now, muted as if heard from underwater. The intensity of the joining consumed his awareness. He held her tighter, his body pressed against hers, his human form an anchor for her luminous, shifting energy. Their combined light was now a single, coherent field, pulsing with a steady, powerful rhythm. He couldn't see the pet anymore, but he could feel its small, fragile frequency nestled within their combined resonance, safe, hidden. He felt a deep sense of peace settle over him, a quiet stillness at the center of the storm. He was not Gale, the broken soldier, the lonely scavenger. He was part of something larger, something more profound. He was woven into Lyra's being and she into his. Their songs had become one, a symphony of two disparate frequencies finding perfect harmony in the heart of danger. The sounds outside continued, the grinding of metal, the harsh voices, but they seemed unable to penetrate the shield of their joined frequency. They were hidden, not by physical barriers, but by the sheer, overwhelming power of their resonant connection. He stayed like that, joined with Lyra, for an unknown amount of time, until the sounds of the disruptors finally faded, their hunt taking them elsewhere. The danger had passed, at least for now. The intense golden light subsided. The indigo softened back to a gentle blue. He felt the separation begin, a slow, gentle unraveling of their joined consciousness, leaving him back in his own body in the dark, cold shaft. Lyra stirred, pulling back slightly. Her light was still soft, a calm blue, but the vibrant violet and crimson were returning to her patterns. The pet uncurled, stretching and chittering softly. They were safe. The shield had held. He looked at Lyra, truly looked at her, in the dim light of her form. Her dark eyes met his, filled with shared understanding, a shared history that went beyond words. The vulnerability was still there, but it was tempered by a fierce strength, a profound connection that had been forged in the crucible of their merging. It worked, he breathed, the words feeling inadequate for the immensity of what they had just experienced. She nodded, a small smile playing on her lips, a subtle shift in the light on her form. Our songs, she resonated, her voice regaining its full, deep richness, are deeply entwined, Gale. A perfect harmony. Perfect harmony. He felt it too, a resonance that went so deep. The misunderstanding about breeding had led them to this moment, to a level of intimacy and connection he had never thought possible. He hadn't just helped her pet. He had merged his very being with hers, becoming something new, something whole in the process. The old wounds were still there, the sorrow, the resilience, but they were no longer the dominant notes. They were part of a larger, richer symphony, played out with the luminous creature who saw his song and joined it with her own. They were no longer adrift. Their path was clear now, entwined, leading them forward, together, into the unknown future, hidden within the harmony of their shared light. The silence in the service shaft was complete now, the sounds of the disruptors long gone. Gale and Lyra stood in the dim glow of her returning light, the pet nestled safely in her arms. Lyra's form was once again vibrant, the violet and gold flowing across her sheath with their usual grace, the deep crimson pulsing steadily. The intense, unifying light of their merging had subsided, leaving behind a profound sense of connection, a silent understanding that had bypassed words and gone straight to the core of their beings. Gale felt different, lighter, somehow. The weight he had carried for so long hadn't vanished, but felt less heavy, integrated into the larger harmony of his connection with Lyra. The despair was still an echo, the resilience a foundation, but hope was a new, vibrant note in his internal song. They won't find us now, Lyra resonated, her voice warm and strong. Our combined frequency is mass within itself. It is no longer a beacon. He nodded, looking at the damaged access panel they had abandoned. It didn't matter anymore. They had found a deeper shield. So, he said, turning to face her fully, what now? The question hung in the air between them, filled with the weight of everything they had been through, everything they had become. The raw intimacy of their merging was still palpable, a tangible force in confined space. Lyra met his gaze, her dark eyes reflecting the light of her form, deep and luminous. The patterns on her sheath pulsed with a mixture of calm strength and a quiet anticipation. My path, she resonated. It was to secure the bond-seeker's future. That is achieved. He is anchored, safe within the harmony. She glanced down at the pet, which purred contentedly in her arms. My path is now fluid. It seeks resonance. Completion. Completion. He remembered her saying that in the shielded chamber. The pairing frequency saw completion. He understood now what that meant. Not intellectually, but fundamentally. It meant them. Together. Your path, he said, stepping closer, reaching out a hand toward her face again. Her skin was cool and smooth under his touch. It led you to me, my path. It feels like it was always leading here, to you. A ripple of golden light spread across her form, warmer and brighter than before, radiating a silent joy that needed no translation. She leaned into his touch, pressing her forehead against his again. He felt the subtle vibration of her resonance against his skin, a familiar, comforting hum. Your song, Gale, she resonated, her voice soft, intimate. It is beautiful, full of power, and needing a harmony. And yours, he replied, his voice rough with emotion, is the most beautiful I've ever heard. He threaded his fingers through the delicate, translucent frills framing her face. They pulsed softly against his fingertips, radiating a gentle warmth. She pulled back slightly, her eyes searching his. Our paths, they are entwined now, she resonated. The joining, it is permanent, not just a shield, a bond. A bond. Yes, that felt right. Stronger than any physical tether, more enduring than any contract. A bond forged in vulnerability, danger, and profound merging of their disparate songs. What does a permanent bond mean for your kind? He asked, needing to understand the implications, the alien commitment he had entered into. It means shared existence, she resonated. Shared purpose, shared resonance. It means the individual frequencies are no longer truly separate. They are a single integrated harmony. We walk together. Always, always. The word resonated deep within him, filling the emptiness that had been there for so long. Always. No more drifting. No more isolation. A shared existence with this luminous, extraordinary being who saw his hidden depths and called him beautiful. He smiled, a genuine smile that reached his eyes, a smile he hadn't offered the galaxy in years. Always sounds pretty good to me, he said softly. Her form blazed with light, a radiant explosion of gold and violet and crimson that filled the narrow shaft, chasing away the last vestiges of darkness and fear. It wasn't the frantic light of panic or the focused beam of energy. It was a light of joy, of acceptance, of a found completion. Our path, she resonated, her voice a powerful, resonant symphony that echoed through the shaft, begins now. Together. He held her gaze, lost in the luminous depth of her eyes, in the vibrant dance of light on her form. The universe outside the service shaft, the dangers, the uncertainties, they were still there, but they seemed less daunting now. He wasn't facing them alone. He was facing them with Lyra, their songs entwined, a single, powerful harmony in the vast, silent symphony of space. The alien girl had demanded he breed her pet, and in the most unexpected, profound way imaginable, he had found himself bonded, his life forever changed, not by biological reproduction, but by the resonant merging of his broken human heart with her luminous, alien soul. Their story had just begun.